The Praying Angel Ornament, one of my all-time favorites. I am making one today, and I thought I'd show you how I do it. So this is how I file all my patterns. And I need the arm, and then I also need the angel shape. And these are cut out of poster board, and I drew them onto my fabric, 2 arms and 1 angel, and then I have to sew the arms first and cut them out and turn them inside out because I have to insert them into the angel body. So I just cut those out, and I'm turning them inside out with my shish kebab skewers. That's what I always use. And I also stuff just a little bit of stuffing into the bottom of the arms where the hands would be, just to give them a little bit more body. And so here's my stuffing, and I always use scissors for stuffing just because it's the fastest and easiest way for me. So here's the other one, and then I'm gonna position them inside of this shape so that when I sew around that, the arms will be attached. And you just have to make sure that they're fully sticking out, that the ends, the raw ends, are sticking out of the shape so that when you turn it inside out, you don't end up with fraying, if you know what I mean. So here I sewed it, and I left an opening at the top of the head so that I could turn it inside out. And I'm cutting around the shape and clipping the corners, and then I'm going to turn it inside out. When I turn this shape out inside out, I always get the arms first. So I'm going to use the shish kebab skewer, and I'm going to pull the arms out first, because sometimes if I don't do that, I notice that the tail is a little bit on the thick side. So if the arms are in there too, they just get stuck in the neck. So here it is, I turned it inside out. I'm going to push out all of the corners on the tail, and then I also stuff the tail, and then I'm going to do a little bit of detail stitching around on the tail, just to give it a little bit more interest, is the word I guess that I'll use. So I'm just pushing the stuffing into the tail, not too much, because I want it to stay flat, but I want it to be a little bit three-dimensional. So when I sew the detail over it, it just has a nice kind of a puffy look to it that I like. So I'm going to sew that with my machine, and here it is. And the next step would be to stuff it, and I always use polyfill stuffing. That's the best one. And I use scissors to stuff it. And I like to stuff it really firmly. So the scissors work great for me, and I just use kind of small pieces and just stuff them in, and try to keep it really even so that it doesn't get all lumpy. And usually one side, when I'm finished, usually one side looks a little better than the other side. So I kind of turn it back and forth and see which side looks the smoothest. And that's the one that I would use for the front. So I also, when I get to the top, I definitely don't like the neck to be floppy. So I make sure that it's nice and tightly stuffed in there. And then also the face, I like that to be nicely stuffed. Once I finish stuffing it, I sew the top of the head closed, even though I'm going to cover it up with the hair. I sew it closed just to make sure that the shape looks really good. So I'm almost finished stuffing it here. I always use Gorilla Glue in the glue gun. I'm going to use a glue gun later, but I always use Gorilla Glue. Other glue sticks just aren't really as good. So I'll be using that, and then I also use the Micron markers for the face. Those work really, really well. So here I'm just finishing that up, and that looks really good. And the arms look great, so I'm going to sew the top. And I just use the whip stitch to close that up. Of course, nobody's going to see that, so it doesn't have to be gorgeous because it's going to have the hair glued on there. I'm going to paint the cheeks on, and I have a little red there that I mixed with white. Then I have to wipe most of the paint off on a paper towel, and then this makes really great cheeks, and you just kind of swirl them around and comes out really great. So I always like putting the pink cheeks on. The face really makes it come to life. For the praying angel, I like their eyes closed, so I draw their eyes closed with 3 little eyelashes underneath the eye, and then I use the brown marker to make the nose, and then I'll use a little bit of the red paint to make the mouth, and as always I just do 2 downward strokes. And there it is. And then, of course, you have to let it dry because you'll forget that it's not dry, and then you'll end up putting your finger on there. So I taped the arms next to the body because when I paint the body, I don't want to get any paint on the arms, and I don't want to have to be super careful. So it's just easier to put tape on the arms. And then I can take that off after it dries. So I'm going to do a little ombre look, and I'm actually making this as a gift for somebody, and I know she likes pink, so that's why I'm using pink. And then I'll use a darker kind of a magenta pink on the tail, on the bottom tail, and I'll blend those together. So these are the Lumiere. This paint is the Lumiere, and I think the color is called fuchsia. It's not really fuchsia, it's really pink, but they call it fuchsia. And then the color that I'm going to use on the tail bottom is one of the Seta colored paints, fabric paints, and that color is called purple. And that color should be called magenta. So I don't know why they call it purple, but here it is. I love this color, and I love those paints. So as usual, I'm using my hands to finish this up just because that's the easiest way for me instead of trying to use the brush. Well, I'm using the brush too, but I'm using my hands a lot just to do the blending and to blend the 2 colors together so that it has that nice ombre effect. And I really like the way that this is coming out. So I'm just smoothing out the paints and blending the 2 colors together now. And then that has to totally dry, as I'm sure you figured out. Now these are crowns that I made, and I make them with something called chipboard. I cut strips of chipboard painted gold, and then I glue it, and then I glue those little tiny crystals on there. And I love the way that halo looks. This is how I do the hair. I'm using this beautiful boucle yarn that's hand dyed, and I fold it in half and half again, and I folded this in thirds. It depends on how long I want the hair, but I want it to be about that long. And then I tie it in the middle, and then I have found it easiest to attach the halo to the hair before I glue it onto the head. I used to try to sew the halo on after I glued the hair on, and it's really hard to sew it on because of the glue that's already dry. So I found that this was a lot easier. So I attach it to the hair, and then of course when I glue it on, the glue will also catch the strings that the halo is attached with. So this method works really, really well for me. And I don't like gluing the halo on because I think it looks sloppy and kind of cheap, actually. So here it is. It's all ready to go. And here's my beautiful angel. It's all dry. And I have to get the tape off. And it just kind of slides off, or you can cut it off if you want. Usually it just opens up like that one did. So this is glitter glue, not glue, I'm sorry, glitter paint, and it's dimensional, but I just use it to do an overcoat of glitter. And I really like this because it just gives it a little bit of sparkle. And I put this on just about everything I make. Now, fabric tack is what I'm going to use to glue the little border around the neck. I was going to use a little beaded border, but I actually kind of think that this friend I'm making it for might like this better. It's so pretty, this flower. It's a little thick for around the neck, but I think it's okay. And so the hands will go together there, praying. And I have to glue the wings on. Now these are wings that I painted and put a crackle coating on, and then I distressed it. So I'm gluing this on using the Gorilla Glue, and I have to hold it in place for a little while till it sets. And I have glue on the head, and I'm gluing on the hair right now. And there it is. It's so cute already. And now the best part, the praying hands. Going to put those together, and then the glue is on the back side of the hand, so it will glue itself to the body that way, because some of the glue spills out. And there she is. She's finished, except for the string on the back. I have to add a string on the back. So I love the way this came out. I hope my friend likes it. I'm sure she will. And I use waxed linen string that's used for bookmaking for the string. I used to have a store that I bought all the string from, and they stopped selling it, so I've had to find it somewhere else. It's very frustrating trying to find exactly what I'm looking for, but I did find it. And here it is. It's all done. I love the way it came out. So I hope you'll try one, and thank you again for watching, and I hope I see you next week.